If you want FPS like this, then go ahead and follow this guide here and visit SENSEQUALITY.com if you do need PC optimization here, but let's get into it. Hey guys, my name is Kirneill, and today I'm going to show you exactly how to boost your FPS in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 here. Now, if you need more FPS, you could always visit SENSEQUALITY.com and get a PC tune. We'd work with all the professional players, and we would love to work with you and get your FPS up there so you can see the enemy before they see you. Alright guys, so the first thing that we have to do is we got to get into the video settings here. So I'll give a great in detail guide on the video settings. So the full screen display mode should be full screen exclusive. I just have it full screen borderless here just so I can help you guys out, but you want full screen exclusive there. So if you go down, now this is a part that a lot of videos will not tell you. Basically, if you're having any FPS trouble, this is the first thing I would try. Do you see where it says restart shaders preloading? What I would do is actually click on this, and I would actually restart your shaders. That way it re-downloads it, and what that does is just make the game way more consistent there. So a lot of the times what people do is they start up the game, they don't let the shaders finish, and what that does is create inconsistencies, FPS problems, etc. So what you really want to do is just make sure that your shaders are as good as possible there. And what we have to do here is the Nvidia Reflex low latency. Now this is for Nvidia cards. If you have this, I would just set this to on. Honestly, the best setting. On plus boost is if you are CPU bounded. What does that mean? So basically that means that your CPU, which I have a 5950X, you might have a different CPU, is different than your GPU, right? So your CPU is like transmission and your GPU is like main engine per se, right? I mean, if your transmission is slow, but you have a very fast engine, you know, the performance that you expect. So that's when you put on plus boost, add a little turbo to that. But basically, I would just set it to on a lot. Probably 80% of the computers, 80% of Nvidia computers do better on because games like this is very GPU bounded, which means that they don't have a good enough engine, or their engine just needs a little bit more help and they might have a good enough transmission. So now let's go to eco mode. That should be custom because we're going to use our own settings. VSync gameplay, this should be off. VSync menu should be off. Custom frame rate, this one's a little tricky here. So custom frame rate limit, if you get over 240 FPS in your particular resolution, make sure you check your resolution to match your monitor here. Basically, you want to set this to unlimited just so you can see that extra FPS. Now this depends on if you have over a 240 FPS monitor or not. Most of us don't, but still, if you don't get over 240 FPS, I would definitely put this custom made limit on here. And Kirneill, why would you even put a custom made on there? So basically, a lot of people think that it's just gonna make your game smoother and stuff like that, and the reason why it actually does make it smoother, I'll explain it to you guys, a secret here. The reason why it does make your game smoother is because your GPU is not gonna be working as hard in the actual menu here. So you see how the GPU time is 3 here, and do you see how I have 160 FPS in the menu? If I put on a custom limit, that allows my GPU to breathe. You don't have to be revving at full force all the time in your car. Your engine's gonna break down, right? So what you want to do is make sure that your GPU gets a chance to breathe, cool down in between games, and make sure that you get consistent FPS. The thing about this is a lot of people are revving their cars, quote unquote GPUs, in the main menu between games, and that's why game to game it feels so inconsistent. So if you want more consistency, you definitely want a custom frame rate there. But I get over 240, so I just like the unlimited. I'm an ego guy. I like seeing high FPS here. So basically, I would see that this setting is off. This is high dynamic range HDR here. Don't really need that. Takes up a lot of performance. Focus mode, you can leave that on 90. This varies based on if you have a very wide monitor here. So now let's get into the nitty gritty here. I love this part. Okay, so basically the render resolution, this is set to 100. That's perfectly fine. You want to make sure that this resolution matches your monitor. So I have a 1440p monitor. We come back here. We make sure that matches here, right? You want to make sure that actually says 1440p or 1080p, whatever kind of monitor you have. You want to make sure that this says the screen refresh rate that you have and you're good. Dynamic resolution, I really wouldn't do that. I don't recommend it. A lot of the pros don't do it. So there's two options here. So you can leave it as is, and I'm going to give you guys my secret Nvidia color settings here. You guys are going to love it. But basically, you can leave this off, or you can turn on Fidelity Cast and put it on between 25, or you could set it up to 50. What Fidelity Cast does is it's basically an overlay of sharpening on the game. I personally like the game without it, but that's my personal preference. However, some people like fidelity cast, so I would definitely try to see which one works for you here. This is the thing, guys. This is the common logical fallacy here. Everybody shouldn't have the same settings. You should have different settings than the person that has a very high $7,000 PC, right? Like, you should have different settings on a budget PC, right? Like, everybody has different settings, and that's why I love teaching these things to you guys, so you guys could find the right settings for you instead of just copy and pasting it, right? Because you guys get more value out of that. So let's continue here. So VRAM scale target, you could set this to 90. If you are having FPS issues, you set this to 70 here, so you should be good. The overall rate shading, unless you have a really bad like PC here, I would not turn this on. If you're like struggling with FPS, that's when I would start turning that on there, but that is like last resort. You can also just use like DLSS. So if you come up here and you go to DLSS, put it on like ultra performance there, you can also use that as well. That'll boost your FPS for sure, but that might add delay, so I wouldn't do it if you are a competitive player. Texture resolution, very low. Now this is the one main, this setting does most of the graphical changes on this entire game. All these other settings, I'm telling you, they don't make that much of a difference. This setting, you put this to normal or high, your game's gonna look good, right? Basically, if you put it to very low, you're going for more of a performance aspect. Normal high, you're going for more of look and aesthetic aspect. So it shouldn't make that much of a difference if you have high-end PC. So let's say that you have a 4090, you'll put this to normal or high, no problem. It shouldn't make any difference to you at all. But if you have a lower-end PC, that's what I would put it at very low. Or if you're trying to get just the most, squeeze the most performance out of your PC, that's when it should be very low there. Texture, filter, anitropic. I usually just set this to normal. That way you can get like a nice balance between performance, a nice balance between quality there, because you don't want the game looking complete trash, right? So depth of field off, detail level of quality. To be honest, for me, I like this at normal, guys. That way the game looks a little bit better. I don't like a blurry game there. Or you can put it at high if your game's looking a little blurry there, because this makes a difference too. Particle quality resolution, very low. That's perfectly fine. Bullet impact, I would say off. If you look here, if this is not important to you, you're trying to see your enemy, you're not necessarily worried about a box having bullets in it. Persistent effects off. Shader quality, I would set this to honestly low, so that's good there. On-demand texture streaming off. Local texture streaming, I would honestly set that to normal. That way you're good there. And let's see here. Shadow quality, very low. Shadows, guys, are very, very intensive on your system. You really got to be strict about this. If there's a thing that you want to sacrifice, it's going to be the shadows here, because shadows aren't really that important unless you have a high-end PC here. Screen space, shadows off. Ambient occlusion off. Screen space reflection off. Static reflection quality low. So basically tessellation off. Terrain memory, you set this to min or medium if you have a very good like 4090 or something like that, 4070 Ti. You can also set this to medium. It's all different, guys. So basically, if you have a better PC, it gives you more wiggle room to use better settings, right? I'm not saying you have to use these settings for a better PC, but you have a little bit more wiggle room. If you use these settings on a better PC, you're just gonna get a lot more performance out of your PC here. Volumetric quality low. Deferred quality, I would just set this to off. Weather grid volumes off. Water quality off. View, a lot of the professional players play between 103 to 105 there. A lot of the mouse and keyboard players play to 120. ADS field of view affected, and these are all pretty much stock there. You could just do 50-50 for these here. And inverted flashbang, save your eyes, guys. This is the most important setting. Save your eyes. Turn this on. If you go to interface and you want to see your FPS, you want to go to telemetry, you want to turn on FPS counter, turn on the server latency, and turn on like the packet loss. That way you're a little bit more aware of like how your system and how your internet's running. Skip introduction. Oh, please. If you don't like the introduction, just skip it, turn that on, and you should be good there. Now let's go through all the settings that you want to change outside the game. So if you go to file and you go to documents, Call of Duty, players, and you go to options.4.cod23.cst, you're going to right click it and press edit here. You'll see this pop up here. So this is a lot of settings here, but I went ahead and broke it down for you guys here. So I'm going to leave this txt in the comments here. That way you guys have access to it. It'll make everything much faster here. So these are just copy and paste of all the settings that I personally think that you should change in this documentation here. So basically, let's start with it. So what I usually do, just to make this easy, is I just copy the name of the setting. So this render word count, and I just control F and I just paste it here. So you could just either look up or down. So you see how it just finds the setting immediately. That way you could just go through this really quickly without having to go through each setting. So I hope that saves you guys time there. So basically, let's get into it. The thread count for handling a job queue. So this is like relating to your CPU here. So if you look, it's saying that my CPU has 16 cores. Now with modern games, they it could only handle necessarily up to 8 cores. So if you have more than 8 cores, what you want to do is you just want to set this render word count to 8 there. If you have less than 8 cores, let's say you have a 5600X and you have 6 cores, I would just set it to 6 or set it to 5. Either or should be perfectly fine, but just match it to your core amount if you have less than 8 cores. Now, if you do have 8 cores or more than 8 cores, you just want to set this to 8 because the games don't really function very well off 8. You're going to notice a substantial FPS boost from this. The next thing is if you don't like the licensed music and stuff like that, I just personally set this to 0. This is just my pet peeve. War volume tracks, I set this to 0, 0. If you're like the type of guy that just doesn't listen to music in game. Maximum number of corpse AI. Honestly, you could set this between 0 to 5. Honestly, I would just leave this at 0 there because you don't really care about the AI. That's not going to help you see like the person that's trying to kill you faster, right? So show blood effects. I just set this to false in general. So again, you could just come over here, copy. In the main file, you just paste it there. And if you can't find it, just go down and boom, it finds it for you. And then you can make the changes on that main file there. So that should be perfectly fine. So when limiting blood effects, number of milliseconds between effects. So this is the blood limit interval. So if you just copy, and this is how I personally do my settings, this makes it very fast. So I could just like copy this whole thing right here, paste it right there, boom. And what do you know? All the settings are like pretty much being done for you. Weapon eject brass, I would set this to false there. Catmull Clark subdivision level, I would set this to 0 or 0 to 3. I would test out 0 to 3, but 0 just to see what kind of FPS that you could get with just the maximum settings possible here. So enable Nvidia Reflex low latency mode. Boost mode request maximum GPU clock frequency regardless of workload. So this is the Nvidia Reflex that we did in game. You don't really have to change this, but like if you want to, you could just find it on this file here and set that to enabled, not enabled plus boost, unless you are CPU bounded. Now let's go to texture filter quality. Now this is the same setting in game here. We already changed this, but if you do want the best filter quality, you would set it to 3. If you want your game to look good, if you just want the best performance possible, you want to set it to 1. Texture filter quality, texture filters. Now this is a special setting here. Let me give you guys the secret sauce. So what you're going to do is you're going to copy this texture filter quality linear, right? And you are going to paste it right here. And I already did this for you guys, so you guys don't even have to do it. I'll link this text file below. But basically what you want to do is change this to texture filter linear. It might be anitropic, 8-time anitropic, but you want to change it to linear. That way your game performs way better. Enable optimization when resize bar is supported by uploading more data to VRAM. This is the GPU upload heap. So this is just basically resize bar. You want to make sure that that's true. Balance, model levels. So basically like if you have a very, very poor PC, you could go low quality, or you want the best performance possible, you could go low quality. I prefer like medium quality at least. Like that should be perfectly fine because you want like the best FPS, but you want your game to look good as well. Corpse culling threshold. So this should be 0.50. So that should be perfectly fine there. World streaming quality option. World stream quality option should be, I set mine to high. Like again, like these are one of the settings that if you have a lower PC or you want just a little bit more performance out of your high-end PC, you can set this to low here. These are all personal preference. There is no right or wrong with these. There just is, right? Quality level of shadows from the sun at a distance. So what you're going to want to do, like if you're on that other file there, you want to copy this over the low 1 cascade and you want to paste it between the parentheses there. So that should be perfectly fine, or the quotation marks. And then you want to control save it. So that should be fine. Or you can just copy and paste from this file here. Like I already did it for you guys. So you just copy and paste it on this file. Like if you find it there. Reflection probe relighting stages. So this should be 1 static shadow, sun shadow moments, clip map resolution. So static sun shadow, clip map resolution, this should be 1. So basically that should be perfectly fine. And then there's a last setting. So this is the virtual texture memory mode. So this is very, very personal here. So basically I would test out which one works for you. You're going to have to do a few testing. I'll show you how to do the benchmark here in game. But for most people, I would just like consider medium. That should be perfectly fine. If you want an extra juice, you could go extra small to small and you should be perfectly fine there. But medium should work for most people. So after that, you press Control S, which is Control Save, or you go to File and Save. Now you're not going to do it on this one that I provided you guys a cheat sheet. You're going to do it on the options.4.cod23.cst. You just or File, Save there. And then everything should save and you should be perfectly fine. After you save this, let's go into your Nvidia color settings here. So what you do is you have to go to Adjust Desktop Color Settings here. And this is in the Nvidia control panel. And what you'll do is set this to 55. Brightness and contrast, you'll set that to 60. Gamma, you leave that alone. Digital vibrance, you set that to 75 there. And that should give you a boost there. Now, if you want to go to manage 3D settings and get a little bit more FPS there, you only got to change a few things here. What you're going to do is you're going to change the power management mode to prefer max performance. Shader cache size, you can set that to 100 200 gigabytes. What you do is texture filter quality. You are going to change that to high performance, and then you want to change threaded optimization. If you have a really good CPU, you want to change that to on, and that should give you a big boost there. You don't need this low latency mode setting. It already has that in the game called resize bar, so you don't need that at all. You could just set that to off there, and that should be perfectly fine. So that is fine there. If you want a smoother looking game, you could enable G-Sync. If you just want just the least input delay possible, you could actually disable G-Sync there, and that should be fine. You want to go to change resolution. You want to make sure that your monitor is set to its highest render resolution here. Mine is a 1440p monitor, so it's 2560 times 1440p, and then you want to set it to the highest refresh rate and press apply. A lot of people make this mistake here, but this is very important, and this will allow you to see your enemies and make sure that your computer is actually running at full performance here. So I'm just going to press yes and apply those changes there. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to just go ahead and just test out the Windows settings here. So we're going to go to background apps, and you want to make sure that all your background apps are off. If you're on Windows 11, you do not have this feature, don't worry about it here. I got you covered. And then you want to go to task manager, and you want to go to startup apps, or you can just type in startup apps here, and you want to disable any kind of startup apps that you guys have here that is not important. Now, if you have a CPU cooler, you want to leave that on, but everything else you could really disable there unless you actually really need it. That way your PC is only focused on your game there. Another thing is you want to make sure that your game mode is actually on, and if you use like Xbox Game Bar, you could leave this on to talk to your Xbox friends here, but I suggest just turning this off if you don't use it at all here, unless you're on a Ryzen. Now let's go to graphics settings, and you want to make sure that hardware acceleration is actually on here. That way your GPU can actually help out your game and increase your FPS performance there. And let me show you guys a little trick. Now this is the secret sauce for everybody who continue watching here. Let me give you guys the secret sauce here. So I'm going to leave a link down below, and this is going to allow you to actually boost your performance and speed up everything. Basically, you're going to see in that link that you have Nvidia Profile Inspector. So you're just going to open that up and run that as an administrator there, and you're going to see two profiles there, right? You're going to download this on your computer, and you're going to run it as an administrator, and you're going to click this little button right here called import user defined profiles. You're going to import that here. You're going to go on Call of Duty, for example, and this is specifically for Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3. You're going to open that up, and then you're going to go ahead and apply changes. After this is all loaded, you're going to just apply changes there, so that should be good. And then you're just going to import profile again. You're going to go to base profile, and you're going to open that up, and you're going to see my screen turn black here just because it's applying the changes there. And you're going to apply changes there, and that does all your NVIDIA control panel settings, plus boosts your FPS and enables resize bar in your game here. So that should give you a nice little boost right there. So we already went through the color settings, so you'll have to do the color settings after if you haven't already, so that should be perfectly fine there, but that is very good for your FPS there. Now let's go into a few tweaks here. So you're going to type in adjust in your Windows here, so you'll see adjust the appearance and performance of Windows here, and you're going to see performance options. So if you want the highest performance, you could click adjust for performance. A lot of people don't like this because basically it makes your computer look kind of weird, but you can go ahead and just click smooth edges of screen fonts and smooth scroll list boxes, and you could go ahead and apply that actually. And what that does is it basically reduces the amount of stuff that Windows has running for visual art in the background, or makes your computer look better. This only makes your PC focus on performance here, so that should be good as well. And I'm going to provide you guys with a little script down below. So basically, if you want to clean out your PC, because your PC is just a little bogged down there, I'm going to provide you guys a clean script on your Windows here. So in that same link that I sent down below, you should see like a clean script there. So you'll just run this as an administrator, clean.bat, and that should clean your full computer and make sure everything's good. And then you want to run Windows, the bloat.bat, and this makes sure that everything's good there. Now, before you run these, what you want to do is go to system restore and create a restore point. And you want to do create, you can name it SOQ, for example, before you do any changes to your computer, and create that. And what this does is, in case anything happens to your computer or if it's not working, you can just go back to your system restore point there, and you should be perfectly fine there as well. So that should be good. For the Nvidia drivers, a lot of people ask me, what is the best Nvidia driver here? And what I'll answer is, if you ran that Nvidia profile inspector there, every driver is going to be good on your computer no matter what. So you don't even have to worry about that. Basically, every driver is going to run perfectly fine on your computer, but just know that every time you update your Nvidia driver, you have to do this Nvidia profile inspector again. And again, that link is down below there in case you guys need it. So that is just the basics of like FPS there, and that should give you through a lot of it here. So if you guys need any help or any tips, of course, you could go ahead and visit SENSEQUALITY.com and get like a PC tune. That's the same thing that the pros get from us as well. So if you guys need any help with that, you could visit that down below. I'll leave a link in the description there. But don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. And you guys let me know if you guys want any more tips or anything, or if you guys had any more questions, and I'll answer that link down in the description there. Have a wonderful rest of your day, guys, and I hope you enjoy the FPS.